Okay, welcome everybody. It's October 29th, 2013. Wonder what happened back then. That's coming up now. Gosh, I've got, we skipped a month because there was scheduling and there was so much that went on during that period. And I don't know about you guys, but there's been so much challenge and processing and inspiration and revelation and transformation that's taken place. And so I got a story to tell. But I have to preface it by saying that I did not want to tell this story. It's deep. It's really deep. So I have to. Which of my stories have not been deep? So in order to tell the story, I got to lay some groundwork, and there's some really powerful messages that will be at the end of all of this. So, get your coffee. Pay close attention, please. Everything leads to the end, and everything is really important here. So, little plug here. Oh, wait. Before I plug, I have to say that one of the purposes of quantum navigation is, of course, to face your shadow. Not only face it, but integrate your shadow. Your shadow challenges, your belief systems, your negative emotions, and so on. And how is that done? Well, principally, there's a number of things, but the thing I really want to focus on is, like in martial arts, they teach you stances, and those of you who have been with me for a while, I talk about the 60-40 stance or the 50-50 stance. What the heck is that? Well, inside of quantum navigation, as you could imagine, we work with the quantum. And so the quantum is where you feel the most integrated, the most centered, and the most spacious and complete. So that's quantum. And in order to address our shadow issues tend to keep us in the character, locked in the character, trying to fix it and repair from some external pursuit. Let me underline that. An externalized pursuit, which always amounts to failure, because it's about facing, embracing, and integrating that we make progress, okay? So in the 50-50 stance or the 60-40 stance, like in martial arts, you put 50% or 60% on one leg and the other amount on the opposite leg. So in this case, for maximum balance, you want to put like about 60% of your awareness and attention on the back foot, metaphorically speaking, that's supporting you. So what's supporting you is how you got into the quantum. So as you're in the quantum, and you got one foot as your stabilizing force, if you put 60% or 50% on that back leg, then you can reach out, metaphorically speaking, and embrace the issue, the challenge. And we know the challenge has a psychological or story or mental part, but keeping it going is the equivalent in an emotional component. And that emotional component is really hard to break. You can get through it intellectually, but it's hard to break the emotional negativity that you render on yourself. Okay, so when you stand 50-50, then the issue that comes up, the fulcrum of the issue, the core of the issue, will reveal itself when you can embrace it with compassionate understanding, non-duality, non-polarity. So that means it's non-judgmental. So as you embrace and you're standing in the issue, then it's like a balloon that's been, every time you've gone over this issue, and it builds up and it increases the pressure and dynamic till it gets to an explosive state. And that's usually when we deal with something, when it can't be contained within the boundaries any longer, and it just comes out. Well, dealing with the shadow issues is about standing on that back foot inside of the quantum, embracing the issue, letting the charge out. And that's the key. Let the charge out. The stories need to be heard. The feelings need to be felt. You can't run away from the feelings and expect it. You know, these two are magnetically drawn to each other. The stories and the emotion, the negative emotions, they work together and they keep the wheel of karma going round and round and round. So that you keep repeating it over and over and over until you take time to feel it, see the stories and feel the feelings and validate them. It has something to share with you. Okay. Once you do, you're no longer running, and you transform it. You integrate it. You go beyond it. All right. So, in one of the past in the past, wanted to say episodes, the videos on YouTube or on the www.quantumnavigation.net/library, there is a very important video that's accepting, it's entitled Accepting and Integrating the Tempest. Now in there, I faced an issue that I call my Waterloo incident. My Waterloo, as you know, I'll just make this short. I was 5 years old and my father, a disciplinarian and kind of brutal in some ways. He traumatized us, and my older brother and I, and told us to, it took us all our clothes and told us if we don't want to live under his rules, we can go find our way in the world. Okay, that's a little shock therapy. So in tracking back all those emotions that stemmed from there, I eventually had to relive the whole thing. And you don't end the repeated incidents until you fully integrate all of those unfinished processing, the unfinished processing in the mind and the emotion of the child. The child has incomplete processing. Nobody's there to tell it the bigger macro view. You have to build that for yourself. So you kind of have to go back and rescue yourself. And as you do, then you disassemble the boundaries that are created in the repeating dramas. The repeating dramas are our boundaries. So the unconsciousness that cause the fracture and splits, that cause you to dissociate mentally and emotionally, that keep you unstable and always afraid and always in a dissonant state. You're not in peace, especially when other people around you have the same issues, and it's stimulating, it's re-stimulating, because we're all the same. We're all the same one. Okay, so when I went back, I tracked all of those back and paid close attention. And when I went back, inside of there, you'll see how it was done. And it was phenomenal. You have to almost die on the cross, so to speak, or take back the stories mentally and emotionally that you made as a child there. So as you revisit, you are there as an adult with all this experience, so you're repatterning what took place. So my Waterloo moment, I found, you know, the fracture, like a windshield fracture. It goes out in all directions. There's linear ones and there's circular ones. So that's kind of mental and emotional. Very good symbology there. So yeah, I fractured. Anybody would. We've all been in that kind of condition. But by going back and taking your consciousness now back and grab that inner child that experienced that, then you heal those wounds and you pull all of those stories and emotions back and you reframe them. And as you do, as I did, inside of there, you'll see, I talked about how, oh my God, I saw the whole room turning into the open night sky with stars. My brutal father, he started turning it because I had no more issue with him. So he started turning into just stars. And my poor older brother, same thing happened with him. Okay, so I was no longer trapped in that timeline. I was no longer trapped in that incident. And that's important. So that served for what I'm going to go over tonight. The quantum navigator likes to give us puzzle pieces. And it gives it to us in our proper timing. And then it's up to us to use that puzzle piece to go free yourself. Okay? So I've been putting together these puzzle pieces and sharing them as much as I could, you know, in these videos and stuff. Well, there was about a year ago, I can't remember exactly, there was another incident that took place. And that incident was, if some of you will remember, I don't know how it happened, but L on the spine, the lumbar 3, 4, and 5. Something happened in there, and it compressed 3, 4, and 5, and it was excruciating. And what happened, you know, I'd go to the chiropractor, nothing. I mean, just a real temporary change, but oh my God, I went through excruciating 2 weeks until I took it as an issue. And so I probed the issue. I went into the, it was really painful. So again, 60-40 or 50-50 stance, standing in the quantum, embracing that pain, boom. What came out for me was the story and all the emotions. So back at that time, a year ago, it revealed to me that there was a period when I went through this huge trauma where I lost, it seems like I lost my job, I lost my family, and lost my son. And I didn't know why. So, you know, you blame yourself. When you don't know why, we typically go to your best. And you blame yourself. So I blamed myself, and I put all the, little did I realize it all went into L, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and so when I went back through it, and I took all the emotions out of what I experienced there and the stories that I made, because I learned what happened at that time. And it wasn't what I thought. Something completely different. And my story really doesn't matter in this case. But what matters is when we have unfinished business, we put them in different areas in our body, and the spine is a common factor, a common place where our issue resides. Now, this leads into what happened. So yeah, over the month that we were gone, okay, here's the plug I was talking about. I typically do twice a year a Southwest journey, and I take people to all these different power spots in the most beautiful areas of the Southwest for the purpose of helping an individual organically begin to chop down all the weeds and overgrowth and get back to the true self. And going to these different power spots, they charge different centers inside you, and so it starts to release. But we do hiking and stuff, so you're breathing hard and you're hiking and you're moving it out of your system so organically. So by the time you're done, oh my God, you've gone through an enormous change, and you're back in your true self again. Well, in this last one, I went with a student of mine who was part of Flower of Life, and in Flower of Life we put on what we call the Seed of Life, and in the Seed of Life 6-day course we go through the sacred geometry, and then we teach about Taoist yoga. Taoist principles are really, really critical, and some of the areas there are so important. They're about hard training, going beyond the mind, beyond the emotions, beyond the body, and there you find the true self. So we go into hard positions in order to access that, and from that you begin to experience the difference between mind and your typical 3D character and the true self, the quantum self. And as you do, part of the Taoist training is you take whatever psychological issues you got going on, and emotional issues, or even physical issues, and you learn how to take it deep down into your breathing, and through the breathing you move back into the quantum, through the brainwave states all the way into the quantum. And so they teach you how to reside, but take your problems into the quantum, and there you can untangle them. Okay, so that individual that went with me, beautiful, beautiful being, he practiced a lot of that hard training material. So I hadn't seen him for quite a number of years, but we also did a lot of Taoist training in Korea. So when we got together, he really, really wanted to deal with any shadow issue that come up. I mean, that was the highest priority. I don't care what happened. Let's go into any shadow that comes out. I go, far out. Let's do it. And he did. He was magnificent. Absolutely. I've never seen a person go so head on, moment after moment. I mean, during the day, we went through so many different, and of course, you know, you're helping somebody and you're going through all those power spots and stuff. So certainly, your own stuff comes up. Okay, so I needed that lead in, because during the course of the that 10-day experience, I think I was 3/4 of the way through. I never told anybody, but my sacrum, oh my God, my sacrum was killing me, and there's no issue. There's no incident. I didn't fall. I didn't, you know, come down on it hard. Nothing. And I've done these treks so many times for so many years. Why all of a sudden now? Why? I didn't know. But it kept accelerating. And I kept ignoring. And it kept getting stronger. So by the time we're done, we had, you know, my wife's work is 4 days of contact work. So the Southwest Journey kind of butts up against the 4 days of contact work with her, which was absolutely phenomenal. So all the while I'm like, ooh, 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 my sacrum, my sacrum. But I didn't let anybody know. And we had a great experience there, and it got so bad. I was in so much pain. And it was flushing stuff out of me, very similar to your experience. So you're going out of both ends, pretty much. You're clearing all kinds of stuff, but it was too painful. I couldn't get it. So I went to the chiropractor after he got back from vacation. Funny how even the last incident that I had with my lumbar, my chiropractor was out on vacation, so I had to go through the pain. Anyway, when I got to see my chiropractor, he did the adjustment, and so what? Pain. You're not going to pay attention? Pain. So I just decided, oh my gosh, well, you know, like a good massage therapist, you can have them put their weight, you know, if they're holding a muscle under their elbow or on their thumb, and they'll put that pressure on that overstimulated muscle so that you can breathe through it and release the charge. So I thought to myself, okay, well, the chiropractor's not working. I'm going to have to take matters into my own hand, you know, because I could not get into the quantum and get anything because I wasn't getting nothing. So I resolved to lay on my back. I got an edge of a bottle, you know, the rim, the bottom rim of a bottle. I put it under my left sacrum. And when it was under the left sacrum on the muscle, I was like, oh, relief. And as I did, I started seeing, I started experiencing. And I went into the quantum, and I was so relaxed because the pressure was off. Then I could see, and I could see this dynastic, pre-dynastic Egypt. Some situation was occurring, and then I started getting all of this download. So, oh wait, first, excuse me, first, this might be a little, first I saw this briefly. I saw this E.T. real briefly, and he looked like this, except he was much older. He had a lot of wrinkles, lots and lots of wrinkles. You know, and I recognized him as a Syrian being. Syrian. And I went, oh, I understand. You know, we've been, in my wife's work, we've been working with the Syrian issue of their negativity. And so we've been processing a lot of the negative things that occurred. And mind you, those of you that have been through this course already know, and for the last few of these, as we put the whole fractal, like the crystalline sphere, one of your timelines is a fractal from apex, the core, the center, all the way out to the edge. So that fractured up, and it represents a lot of your own timelines, your timeline with your different lifetimes. So if the one is that sphere and it all fractalized, then you have just as many lives as a human as you do in all of other species, because you're the one. And so part of our work that we have been doing inside of the quantum navigation, you'll recognize this image here. As we went into the void, where all manifestation occurs, from the nothingness, which is represented by the I. We went into the void, but as we went unconscious inside of the void, we started out with abandonment and betrayal as our first issues that we recognize. I'm no longer experiencing the reverence, communion, and connection with all life. That's here. That's up here in Purusha, and in Purusha you're in superposition. And superposition means you're equally here, there, and everywhere, right? So inside of Purusha, I guess life got boring, so let's go have a separation experience. Okay, but that means you have to forget everything and begin from the beginning. So as we went into unconsciousness in order to experience, we first experience abandonment and betrayal, because the first thing is, I don't feel like I'm connected. I've been abandoned by the sacred, reverent connection and communion with all things. So, Creator abandoned me. And then that translates down to, all those other species abandoned me. And then gets down into your human life here. So the abandonment leads to betrayal, because that's the second story you made. I've been betrayed, I've been tricked. Somebody tricked me, I would have never chose this. This hurts. And then the next story is guilt. So you begin to believe that you're so guilty that you had to be thrown out and go explore externally for all your missing parts and build your way back to heaven by one good deed at a time. So as we saw, this led to the 7 roots of unconsciousness. So unconsciousness created the abandonment, the experience of abandonment, betrayal, guiltiness, which that's the center role, guiltiness, because you're powerless. Oh, I'm guilty, so I'm powerless. All of these hinge on guiltiness, right? So when you're powerless to change anything, and we've been over this enough times, you begin to feel worthless. And then you experience neediness, helplessness, hopelessness, and nothingness. And the ego hates nothingness the most. It wants to be something, it wants to prove itself, it wants to get back. Now, I've always talked about this as being 7 or 9 roots of consciousness. If you look inside of Kabbalah, you will find that the menorah, and this looks like an upside down menorah, they have inside the temple, they talk about the 7 candles. Outside the temple, there's 9. So what do you think the other 2 of these would be? Other roots of unconsciousness. Has to do with greediness. And that would be outside the temple. External. Inside the temple, all these beliefs of yourself. Okay? So, anyway. That ET, as it appeared, the next thing that happened, I saw our 26,000 year cycle. I guess Microsoft or Apple updated and it doesn't flip anymore. Darn. So in our 26,000 year of this, the galaxy, in order to try to understand what happened after I saw the ET, I saw the 26,000 year cycle, and then the communication came from the quantum navigator. It was coming from everywhere, and it was talking about how you're already aware of the 26,000 year precession of the equinox. So our galaxy is this denotion here, and our solar system is here. So in our 26,000 year precession of the equinoxes, there's 13,000 years above, 13,000 years below. And because of the flow dynamics in a galaxy, the bottom side is projective and separative, so it's very masculine, and this is where we go unconscious. The top side is more feminine, intuitive, integrative, and so we start awakening as we go back into the upper side of the galaxy. So you already understand what took place there, and during the last 13,000 years, there's a gradient that happens. So up here, we can say this is the highest consciousness, most integrative, and it's very emotional. It's very connected. So in that period, this is where every being is a complete change from what we experience right now. Because right now we're really into our individuality, and we intellectually understand each other's boundaries, rights, and behavioral protocols that make nice boundaries. So it's mainly done, and there's, you know, a little bit of feeling there, respectively. But when we're talking about the upper portion, it is completely different. There is no thinking. You know each other's hearts. You feel the wants, desires, likes, dislikes, everything with each other. It's so connected. And so during this last period, there's a gradient that begins to happen as we start coming down. Okay, so this is 13,000 years separation, 13,000 years integration. But the last time we were coming down through here, this becomes an important element in the changeover from such an emotionally complete and reverent and sacred experience. So if you could imagine then that in this change you have a gradient, a step-by-step process, day by day, you begin to experience disconnection and separation. And it builds, and it builds, and it builds. It becomes a problem. People start to go, wait, something's wrong. So we're talking now in that last era, let's say Lemurian, and we've all heard enough of the beautiful aspects of Lemuria. It was very feminine, very connected. And so your rulers, they ruled by golden principles. Golden and sacred principles are equality and communion, because you feel the sacredness and the equality of each and every person. So a ruler would be somebody that was so clear they could feel each and every person's need and administered, trying to keep the whole community within that positive influence, benefiting, growing, And this is the time that we had, not just on this planet, representatives from all the different continents, but we had representatives from all the different stars here. So only when you felt that kind of communion could you not feel that's an other. You would not feel alienness. You would feel the equality and reverence and the great beauty of sharing from so many different perspectives. There was such a rainbow of possibilities, always. It was a golden era. Okay, so as it starts coming down, as we start moving through the change, we're starting to feel the separation. Something's wrong. Even the administrators of the land, you know, from the bottom all the way up to the top, are feeling something's wrong. Something's got to be done. And so, when you're patient and when you're filled with ideas that you haven't tried out yet, you employ the most brilliant of technology or systemologies or whatever to try to fix this separation that's going on. But what happens? This is a natural chain of events. It's going down. The change is happening. But we didn't feel that way, and we made a story. I got to fix this. And our self-worth depended on it. Especially in a ruler position. So as it failed, then you came up with more inventive, more cunning ideas. And when those failed, what happened? That's right. We got into desperation and depravity. It got all the way down into depravity. And so as it got down into depravity and failure, how many stories? Abandonment, betrayal, guilty, powerless, worthless, needy, helpless, hopeless. Yeah. Some trying all the possibilities, got obsessive. Think about that. Obsession in whatever area. I gotta fix this. It's up to me. That's the story. But one thing that's missing there is, what about the grief? Oh my God. This beautiful, golden, sacred connection. The grief was intense. And each failure compounded the grief. And so, at one point, there's a switchover, and there's an actual closing of the door of the old reality. Because now you've moved so much into the separation reality. More of the masculine, more of the intellectual, more of the rigid habit and pattern and structure. And so all the wounds, A-L-L, all the wounds, when the door closed on the old paradigm, we left a lot of issues to be dealt with on the porch of the doorway back to reverence. Unfinished business. We made unfinished processing of what we experience. Now, to be fair, the beings that were talking to me were saying, you can't get this in one journey. Of course, they weren't that passionate. They were simply saying, you can't expect, you can't put it on yourself to get it all perfect in one journey of this 26,000 year cycle. Who gives you instructions on what's happening? Each person is responsible for building through experience exactly what happened during this time, during these times. And without an overview, and that's principally what this, how important this is to have an overview. If you don't know the overview, how much do you blame yourself? It is huge. Everyone blames themselves because everyone participated in such a gradient of trying from the most brilliant to the most depraved. You don't get out of here until you have. So, as I was seeing this, they were also telling me that, all right, when you start going down here, there's a problem. Because as you go down here on this side, if we bisected this, in this side of the journey, you're heading into absolute unconsciousness, absolute abyss. So your unconscious stories are allowed to promulgate. So everything you've done during that period had at the apex, at its apex, let's go down deeper. Let's experience a separation. So we dreamed unconscious dreams and then we lived them. We made unconscious goals of how to improve or how to better. So what happens during that period? Here's the hard thing. When we feel so separated and everyone else is the other, and only we have got the right road and we've got the right God and we've got the right perspective, then every other being we betray and murder. We've done that. In the unconsciousness, in the deepest part. And we had good intentions. We were defending our friends. Or maybe not. Maybe we were obsessed. Maybe we got tired of it. We're hopelessness. Everything's hopeless, so I might as well just do for myself. Now, it's important where I'm going with this. Because unless we're conscious of these things, we don't have the capacity to delve into the compassion that's needed. So, as I was experiencing this, then they went on to show me, just like I was pointing out, as we went down below, abandonment, betrayal, guiltiness, we went into the 7 roots of unconsciousness, we dreamed dreams of unconsciousness, and we went into separation and explored those actions, so we went deep into abyss. So this doesn't lead anywhere, except experientially. We need the experience. And then they showed that the beauty is that as we've crossed this part, those unconscious experience now told your soul, soul, I don't want to do certain behaviors anymore. I need to find that old feeling of freedom, of clarity, of communion, of reverence, not just for myself, but for others. And so as we're moving on this 13,000 year and starting to move up, we're now starting to dream dreams of consciousness. So I went, oh, okay, I get it. And they said that in this timeline then, you're approaching the point where you left off, where you left your unfinished business on the porch of the doorway back into greater communion, sacredness, reverence, and connection with all things. And so, as we're approaching frequency-wise, each of us are being re-stimulated because now you're far more conscious than you were over here. Here you went into dreaming dreams of separation. Here we're dreaming dreams of integration. And so where we left our unfinished business on the doorstep of the doorway into reverence, communion, and reconnection, we've got to revisit some of these issues to get past the doorway. And so it's coming out of you naturally. And I went, oh, the sacrum, this is what you're talking about. They say, yes! You needed to see this and understand this. And so I went to the chiropractor again, got a different adjustment, and while I was there was a moment of relief, and all of a sudden, I'm in pre-dynastic Egypt. Somewhere here, somewhere in this transitional point. And I see, I'm observing because I'm in this room, but I'm looking around the room and I'm going, whoa, this is a temple. But nobody's in the temple, and it's really polished. And there I am on the floor. I'm a woman. And I realize I'm a queen. I'm a queen, and I'm in agony. And I'm so upset over, we've tried and failed, the most brilliant and unfortunately, the most depraved. Think about it. Some of our cultures, you know, they go through this period of, oh, got to make a sacrifice. That'll take care of everything. Oh, who do we sacrifice? Oh, let's get rid of our political opponents first. It didn't change anything. Okay, well, we need we need more pure vessels. And eventually it gets down to the point, more. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. It's not going to work. And so there I was in agony. I don't know what I did. They didn't have me see, but they revealed the process. And I went, yeah, okay. I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'm not going to step aside from owning any of it. And so as I did, even the statue, there's huge, beautiful statues. I mean, they're so well kept. And I realized I'm the statue. I'm on the ground agonizing. I'm even the beautiful queen's immaculate, ornate dress. And Isis comes in. And I'm the observer too, and I'm Isis, and Isis goes, my, don't we humans really dramatize our stories. Because in that moment, like in that first video I was talking about, accepting and integrating the tempest, which I talked about the Waterloo, and when I saw through it clearly and took all the issues back, then all of a sudden everything started dissolving, right? And that, I realized, that was preface for the other incident of the spine, the lumbar, and now the sacrum. And so, but here's the thing, I realized and accepted what occurs at these times, and everyone goes through it. But I didn't finish processing all the emotions. And so it didn't dissolve away. Okay? Yes, I was in superposition, so I could be the observer, I could be the queen agonizing, I could be the queen's dress. And the statues, and Isis. And when they all were synonymously one, that's when Isis said, ah, you got it. We humans dramatize our stories with such emotion. And I went, oh, all right. So, that wasn't it. I didn't finish. And the pain didn't go away. It relieved for a little bit, but then it was back. And I was like, okay, unfinished business. All right, go back in the quantum, 60-40 or 50-50 stance, take it back in. And as I did, they started sharing some more. Now, I never knew who these beings were. But when I went into the quantum and I was processing the emotions on these things, all of a sudden, these beings showed up. These are Nagas. And they're either in a 7-group formation or a 9-group formation. And so when I was out, and in the quantum, and I was looking at the 26,000-year cycle, they appeared, and I go, who are you guys? They're Nagas. And I had no idea what they were, so I had to research what they were. Brahma told the Nagas to go underground and guard all the treasures on the planet. And they are semi-divine beings. They have their immortality. They've awakened to their immortality. They're semi-divine, and they're responsible. They live eternally, and they can change forms from these snake-like beings, or half human and half snake. And so they guard they remind me of Seraph from the Matrix. He guards what's most valuable. So these are Nagas, and the Nagas, as I said, 7 or 9, they came and they were telling me that you haven't finished processing. And I go, well, what do you want me to process? And they showed me that there are, you know how you have the 7 and the 9? Here you have the 9, except I didn't write in the 2 that I told you. Okay? So, with that understanding, they guard over, if we were to take a balloon, and delineate the balloon in 7 or 9 delineations, we could say then that if this is a metaphor of the all, or even the void, on the outer rim, the equator, you would have universal consciousness. It's holding the biggest spread, biggest expanse. And within the universal consciousness, you have the galactic, solar, planetary, national, group, individual. So the Nagas were communicating that, you see, in the 26,000 year, you've been here a long time. And we've been trying for a long time to help you put the pieces together to see what happens during the crossover, so that you can understand from a non-dualistic and a non-polarized viewpoint. Everyone has to come to their own realization through experience of these things, so that they can stand and see far enough, clear enough, and non-judgmentally enough. So new souls coming in, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. But that's not a mistake, that's an experience. All the experiences build and upon each other, so that you can get a larger view, and your experience trains your heart and consciousness what not to do and why. So it's burnished into your soul, these experiences. And until you've gone through this enough times and have enough of an overview and perspective and a non-judgmental, non-dualistic understanding, then you won't be able to see. Has been in some, souls come into this place at all different times. So we have souls that have been here for a long time. We have others on a gradient that haven't been here quite as long, but pretty long. And the whole rainbow of spectrum all the way up to new souls. And they're all mixed together. And so as you've come through enough of this experience, each and every person at some point experiences being a leader, and a leader of larger and larger expanses. But from the feminine cycle of the 13,000 years, you intimately feel each other. So there's no problem. But what happens when you lose that and move over to the masculine and look at and experience everything intellectually? There's where all the pain begins. But that pain is essential, because until you've had, in an administration, you learn liability and responsibility. And that's critical. Because without liability and responsibility, through experience of having screwed up, you're going to, like what's happening now, you see on TV, in the politics, in so many different areas, people are brushing up against the unfinished business left on the doorstep of the transition. And if you don't have the overview, oh my God. And it takes the awakened awareness that you've done these things. And you are liable and responsible to the nth degree of how much it hurt you to see the most beautiful person. You failed. And now to see it in a context where you were supposed to fail. So without that liability and responsibility from those larger states, you would never have the compassion to accept universal unconsciousness, galactic, solar, planetary, national, group, and individual. And until you do, you cannot reforge the whole crystal of the One. All the timelines, all the lifetimes, the fractal, the apex fractal, and the tail of the fractal. You've been them all. In fact, they're all happening right now. But as you awaken, it's that level of compassion that flows through the separation caused by the fracturing that the 7 and 9 roots of unconsciousness cause systemically through the whole One, from the inside out to the outside in, and fractured everything. Now, only that level of humbleness and awakenedness, taking responsibility for the unconsciousness on all those levels, that's what heals not only you, but everyone around you. And that's what the Nagas were communicating. And so it wasn't until several of you went Saturday, just this last Saturday, to the sweat lodge. It wasn't until after the sweat lodge, after we got out of the sweat lodge, I was like, oh my God, finally. The pain was gone. I was in excruciating pain through the whole day. But that excruciating pain was just exactly what I needed to sit my butt down and listen. And as I listened, they started showing me, you've done this already. Now just accept it and forgive yourself. It's a much different than what we've been taught, the forgiveness. The forgiveness is so profound. Until you can embrace universal forgiveness, how can you forgive yourself? And paradoxically, if you can't forgive yourself, how can you forgive the universality? How can you forgive God? We all have rage against what we had to go through. This, I'm one of those why kind of people. I need to know why. I need to see why. My character is one, ultimately, I've looked at this. Ultimately is, I want to see. I want to feel. I want to return to that level of reverence. But there's a price, and that price is accepting all histories. Because if we don't, we sit there and we look at what's going on in the politic and on the media, and we go, yeah, those people are bad. And we consciously or even unconsciously separate ourselves from it, going, I would never do that. Well, you have. So there's only that kind of forgiveness. And so anyway, that's the message they wanted me to share, and thank you very much for allowing me to share it, because I did not want to go through the depths and share all of that. Any questions or comments? Yes.
So now that you've, in a way, figured that out, in a way, figured out what's going on, now what happens? And do you have to continue going through that cycle?
I don't know. One doesn't know. We never know what our future is until we're really ready to see that. So I can tell you right now, I haven't finished processing all the emotions on it. There's still the grief. All the last 2 weeks, every time I wake up in the morning, there's such intense grief, and I realize it's coming from everyone that's going through all of this and the amount of judgment that's on it. And that amount of judgment stimulates self-judgment, you know? And so the agony of losing the heart is one, losing that connection. But as we start this process of going back up, there's one thing that's really hard, and that is, I don't ever want to lose it again. And there's this dynamism inside, this fear. If I get to that level of vulnerability again, do I have to go through the agony again?
Because you would be back.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, you know, I don't know the process. Now, understand that I've used this metaphor before of the balloon, and if this is the consciousness, inside of the infinite continuum of consciousness, it never ends, and each of us are relegated to, if we were to bring this into the center and twist it, then we have unconsciousness here and consciousness here. So inside of us, we always have the great expanse of unconsciousness to explore and pose new possibilities and probabilities. Now, and through this understanding and this practice of facing the shadow, doing the 60-40, embracing it, facing it, and integrating it, that disentangles. So when you're ready, then consciousness goes, oh, okay, you're mature enough. Non-judgmental, you're not beating yourself anymore, and you're qualified to know that the singularity inside you reflects the challenge where you're entangled and helps you to disentangle it, and then you move on. That, I believe, is a continuum. We always have, we always have, like the balloon, twisted. We have the unconscious and the conscious parts of ourselves. Slowly discovering for ourselves experientially, what the heck are we if we're a continuum of consciousness? And how many viewpoints do we need to begin to see ourselves holistically? So I'm not sure then if another cycle. Now, it's possible you go through another cycle, but because you've awakened before the door, your probabilities change completely. You're ready to move more like an Andromeda, where reality changes emotionally and psychologically, like this. Because you're so stable inside yourself, it becomes a kaleidoscope and a fun adventure, amusement park within yourself, so to speak. Yes?
Ron, can you go back to point 5, PPTX?
There it is. Yes.
Right there. When you were describing how this is in the feminine integration
Yes.
and going down, I was being shown a baby being born, leaving the womb, the feminine,
Yes.
and then coming out
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
now I got to breathe on my own.
Yes, yeah, that's a good metaphor of it.
So we're all being shown that.
Yes.
In reality.
There's another graphic I'd like to show you. Let me see if I can pull it up here. They're not in order. Ah, here. When you just touched a very a subject I really enjoy. If we're up here, let's say in the feminine, and we're very integrated, this geometrically, this is like all the geometries, all of these geometries all nested together. Okay, but as we move into separation cycle, then slowly all of our, if these are representatives of our chakras and our consciousness, they get pulled out into the Z axis. Okay, Z is the vertical. Okay, so as we go into separation, they get pulled out, so you come into individuality. But if you were to collapse those through meditation, experientially, you collapse those, then the X and Y, you can't get rid of Z. It's just felt everywhere across the X and Y. So it's giving you the separation experience and the levels, and they're all there waiting for it, but we're so distracted, and we usually run off of survival. So, you're right. We baby. We become separated. Yes.
So when you had your release in the tent, or wherever you were there,
Sweat lodge. Yeah.
You said something about forgiveness or forgiving. So when you had that release, were you forgiving something at the time to release that? How did you get that?
No, it was, see, in the sweat lodge, the heat and the steam and the darkness and the amount of time that you're in there, the more you're in the mind, the more it magnifies the uncomfort, right? And the dissociative prospects. But because of those conditions, it all moves you back into the heart. So it drives you deep into the heart. So there were areas of agony. Remember, I said I was the queen on the floor, agonizing. And you can imagine the poor deer is trying everything from, I tried the best of intentions, and each level of failure, you know, promulgates so many different more emotional stories and psychological stories. And so a lot of those who are coming up during that, I'm the most worthless piece, I'm the most worthless administrator. Can't do anything right, and I'm to blame for everything. All those things. And you find the fractures from there that go into, you know, so many different things inside of your current life. You know, so you start, what do you call it, reeling in all of those back to the heart. Yeah. So psychologically and emotionally, you're reframing it under compassion. We were never supposed to make all those stories. We were just supposed to try to do our best. But it takes time. And that time is essential, because until you make the mistakes, you won't have the compassion for everyone else.
So you got back to your heart center, and
Yeah.
that's how you healed yourself.
Yes. And took in the stories and the emotions. Prior to that, they were left as unconscious stimulation.
So you took responsibility too.
Yes, yes, and liability.
And then you looked at it in the face.
Yes.
And forgave it on some level.
Forgiveness comes as soon as you see clearly. They are automatic.
So you're still in the forgiveness process? Right?
Yes, I'm still waiting to see as much as they want to show me now. And each time we do this, the view gets clearer and undisturbed. And so if you then see the difference between polarized thinking, where there's good, bad, and non-dualistic, non-dualistic then takes the polarization, the lens of polarization. So you can only see so far in a polarized lens. You can only see so far into the darkness. But as your non-dualistic experience of integration grows, the deeper you get to see into darkness because you're ready for it. You won't be disturbed by what you see, beating yourself with greater intensity. You turn it around. And so that's what gives us the permission then to step through those tripwires of unfinished business left on the doorstep and open the door feeling light as a feather and clean and clear. You faced your shadow and you owned it. Yes.
So from that perspective, will you ever get out of the way?
I don't know. I think we...
Like you just keep repeating and repeating and repeating, because you've gone back to witness and observe, and then to your point, the queen, and so forth, that was an experience. So that's that one. And now in this lifetime, your next lifetime, you're going to see the issues of this lifetime that you experienced it, and then that next lifetime, and you reviewed it and you got to that point. But each time that we come back, we get a memory wipe clean. So it seems like this is a never ending.
Perhaps. I'm not sure if it ends. However, like I said, we get allowed to journey into the continuum with the understanding we are two parts. We have the paradox. We are conscious and unconscious. Okay? Oh, just a moment. Hold on to that. Okay, so one of the things that the process is doing is driving us deeper and deeper into the source of ourself. So as we're in the source and we're more stable about abiding in source, the need to go out is not there. So you will choose when you need to go out from source. Okay, and one other thing before I answer your question there. Okay, hopefully it's okay. So, ironically, the Buddha has, there's so many writings about the Buddha being protected by the Nagas. Just wanted to throw that in there. Ah, here we go. So I had been discussing about this period here, this transition period where we're switching from two different, completely different states. And many of you have heard of the yugas, the procession of the yugas. It comes from Hindu. But also the Greeks call this age, remember here's the doorway, the Treta Yuga. The Treta Yuga, these are the transition areas. And then in the Kali, if you drew a line here, each of these are approximately 2,000 years. The Treta may be a little bit longer. but in Kali, there's that's when we're in our most deep sleep, and some of the writings where Krishna is talking about don't try to awaken the humans during the Kali Yuga. You're wasting your time. And so if we looked at the midpoint here as being the crossing of the disk of the galaxy, we're kind of in the silver zone, and then we move into the golden age with the Satya Yuga. And this is a long period of that beautiful era that I was talking about.
So
Our golden
doing
age.
this together, it's not
Yes.
individual souls, so we're all in the same part of that circle right now.
Yeah.
But is it that we might have gone through the circle before and
Yes.
we are more enlightened this time around? For
Yes.
our brothers and sisters who are working through the same circle.
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
So it's kind of, to me, it's like you know how microcosmic reflects the macrocosmic. So in our sun, in the core of our sun, you have two very powerful paradoxes: infinite gravity and infinite fusion, which is causing infinite radiance or infinite expansion, right? But in that core, this is the doorway where gamma particles come in. All right? Gamma particles spend a lot of time inside that core meeting each other, and smashing into each other, and giving off the flavors that they all bring to each other for 1,000,000 years. When they've then dropped down into photonic energy. They've minimized their energy, frequency, and fervency, and then they make the transition. I believe it takes 100,000 years to go from core to the surface, and then it's like, okay, you're free, see ya, have fun. But for that 1,000,000 of years, you got to go through the crucible of learning your own empowerment until you're ready to be released, and you're free to follow the continuum wherever you want to go.
So where are we now on that circle?
We are just above the midpoint of here, so we're in the silver, we're in the Treta Yuga. We're up in here.
Good.
Everything's starting together, but like I said,
This time right now I'm feeling the crucible.
yes,
This past couple of years it's more and more.
yes. If we don't awaken to who and what we are, all that unfinished business piles up, and then, hits you kind of all at once. And that's what's happening out there, and that's why I'm trying to do my own personal work and then get it out there, get the overview of it. Makes it a little bit easier, because I tell you, I went through so much pain and beat myself up so bad facing my own shadow and not understanding everything that I've been sharing with you. And I out of compassion, this is what we're supposed to do. Help each other wake up.
And if you don't awaken, i.e. some of the folks that are out there that just could care less about any of the inner work that they need to do, then they come back and start all over at the point of where?
Where they left off. Each person is responsible for building enough
so we could have
foundation.
Further above this circle. I mean this. So if you say that we're here, you could have people that are still over here.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
But look where 2012 is.
Well, on this graphic here, I think they're going this way with it, and they're showing, yeah, this, I wouldn't go, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't go by that. We're in the midpoint. We're out of the Kali. We're in that transitional period. So
To me, two things strike me about what you said. The perception that there is a failure is the illusion that entraps you into the cycle right now, even of having the perception of judgment that there was, like, we have to do it again, is another judgment about it being a failure. And that the way of clear seeing, you couldn't even get to the core of the issue until you got clear of the judgment.
yes, yes, yes.
So is that where in previous courses where you've said you go back to experience it, you live through it, but now you're an observer because you have no more emotion to it?
Yeah, no more false narrative. So you don't have a, the child makes the original story and attaches the negative emotion to it. I'm bad, so you got to have the guilty emotion with it. And so to break out of that, you need the adult to come and work with the child and reforge that bond, like yin and yang coming together. When they can work together on an issue, then the bridge, which is that small little white inside of the dark part of the yin and yang, and the opposite, then they come together and they return to superposition. They don't stay in the entanglement. And that's what we're doing. We're disentangling ourselves from our immature stories and beliefs with their subsequent emotions that keep us entangled inside of these cages where we feel disempowered because of our guilt, pain, shame, blame, grief, anger, and so on. So we heal those by doing just that. And then the walls come down. Awesome. All right, quick break and then we'll do meditation. Preparing for meditation. Find the most comfortable position for yourself. Close your eyes and allow your breathing to slow down and deepen deep into the belly. Inviting your consciousness to detach from the 3D world and invite the intention of your awareness to embrace the breathing, heart, body. Observe the body, relaxing any tension. Allowing the consciousness to move deeper into vulnerability, sensitivity, as we invite all those divine beings we associate with in our normal prayers, meditation, to be present. Integrating with the sensation of breath. Each inhale dissolving the sense of separation and boundary. The presence of the golden heart of our Great Mother filling your awareness. Heart, body, room, consciousness. Allowing the sense of surrender to expand, deepen, broaden. That each breath integrates you with that state of reverence and communion with all things. The unified consciousness. So present. And we ask the navigator then, your navigator, your quantum being, to observe your experience of the last 13,000 years. The exiting, what that felt like from such complete wholeness, connecting you with all things. In such deep appreciation that it was sacred and reverential. And from that place, you're aware of your present state after having experienced the unconsciousness and the separation. And with part of your consciousness standing in the doorway of the last 13,000 years, before it closed, accessing that golden era. Simultaneously with opening the door of the present, the present entrance into a more fulfilled, transformed, holistic experience of rejoining that quantum state. As the observer in both doorways, allow your reverential connection to flow into all the roots of unconsciousness of the last 13,000 years. Of all your lifetimes. Like an Ouroboros. Taking, embracing all the stories and emotions, beliefs, as you stand with both doors open on either end of the 13,000 years, calling all your dissociations, fractures, fractals, splits, calling them, stewarding them, back to wholeness. And now journey with your navigator and your personal experience. begin the invitation to return your consciousness to the here and now. Anybody have any experience they want to share?
I was given a homework assignment.
What kind of homework was that? Is that still going? Oh, okay. Wow, fantastic. What kind of homework assignment?
Oh, this is like the mental imaging of this experience. But I was being shown, I had this world on my shoulders, the weight of the world, and they flashed me back to the early to mid 90s, I think it was. I had spontaneous, I'd wake up 2 a.m. and have panic attacks. I was by myself. And I just dealt with it. And then they went away. So they want me to look at that again.
Oh, homework.
Because when I'd wake up at 2 a.m. panicking, I felt I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was panicking about everything. Nothing specific, just everything.
Wow. That kind of context feels like, like we were talking about, the liability and responsibility that one has when one is in a large administration capacity. But the stories we made as the cycle was changing, the panic attacks are probably...
And I heard a pop in the back of the room. So all right, got it. Oh, this will be fun. I'll dive into that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for sharing that.
I had
Anybody?
an experience of knowing that at the other doorway I was very telepathic with the whale consciousness. And in the sense of grief, that's not really as easily obtained right now.
Your Lemurian era, I'm sure you have a lot of stories of connecting with them. I want to thank you for sharing what you did about your experiences, because after having gone through this, I can appreciate what you went through from a much deeper and clearer perspective.
And it seems to be a lot of what the knee was about all of that time too. You know, just clearing it out of the body. It's about the time that was going on.
Oh, really? Ah. Wow. Profound work. Anybody else?
Sure.
Yeah?
So, when you said the part with the navigator, your navigator coming in, Horus, the Egyptian god Horus, came in for me. And he came in earlier this year too when I was doing another meditation. And we were in this field and I was all in white all of a sudden under a tree. He took me back there because I was like, whoa, you're back. Okay, so we went to this, and I did a lot of releasing, so thank you. Things I needed to do. Worthiness was a big one. And what he did was he had this syringe. It was really like this big syringe, and he stuck it in my heart, and he was pulling out black stuff.
Yeah, that's it.
It was like, what? But then it would disintegrate. It was like spirit was disintegrating it and taking it to wherever it needed to go.
Yeah.
And it was just like this releasing and releasing, and then he's like, let go, because I still wasn't letting go of whatever this was. So when you heard that pop, I let go, and my heart, I went, whew, and I was blasted this room with a bunch of just out from my heart, and then that pop went in the back. So I think it was a message for the people, but it was like, yeah, you heard it. I heard it too.
Yeah.
And it was like, boom, and I was like, okay, and then I was like, all right, and he's like, just relax. And then every time I get anxious or I think I'm not worthy, I have to go into my heart again and blast out bright, beautiful golden light. And that will help soothe me and know that I'm worthy. Because I've done this in past lifetimes, and I'm carrying a little bit of that in this lifetime, not being worthy.
Yeah.
I was just told this by a reader. I was up in Sedona. And it's funny how this is all kind of in the process of asking to let go of my beliefs and replace them with what serves me best. So thank you for, thank you, Clyde. It's just amazing to be here and experience this.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But it
Yeah.
healed a lot today. So I really delved into a big chunk of the healing work that I came to do on this planet for me this lifetime. Because in all lifetimes I've been healing other people, and I'm still doing that now, but this is my lifetime to work on me. I didn't have kids this lifetime. I had a husband back in the day. I'm like single. I'm just working on me, no distractions. And it's hard because I'm used to having kids, and I'm used to having this. You're choosing this lifetime to work on you. And I'm doing it.
Wow, look at the help you got. And it's not easy to let go of the stories. We've inculcated them into ourselves. No, I am that bad. I am that so much of a failure.
Just letting it go.
Yeah. It's hard unless we see, the overview. It's so hard.
Yeah, this was very helpful. It opened the key. It kind of unlocked, like, oh, that's right. I remember, and that was the step for me to open up for the healing work to begin in that meditation.
Wow.
So, again, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Yes? No? Oh, wait till Saturday.
I just blissed out.
Wow.
Oh, but
Yeah, the energy was really beautiful. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. I don't know when the next one's going to be. I got to get my butt in gear and figure it out. I'm going to try to have one in December. So an advertisement will go out soon. It's been busy.
And then you're going to do the Tao yoga thing?
Taoist yoga, yes. I want to now start providing the Taoist training, because that really helps you go deeper into yourself and define the character, mind, and tyrant versus the true self. And so that's November 23rd. Yeah, Saturday, November 23rd at the New Vision Center on, what is that? Tatum. In between Bell and Union Hill. Yep. All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys.